Hi guys, it's Jen and George from Tammy, and today I'm here at WeWork with Billy from Hometime.
Hey guys, how are you?
Who are you?
Thanks, Jen. Maybe I'll push this out.
I think this is actually working.
Yeah, awesome.
Oh no, it's all about you today.
We've had a few difficulties getting the live feed working, but I think we're up and running. Thanks everyone for having a little listen. My name is Billy Crock. I'm one of the founders at Hometime. We're an Airbnb property management platform operating in Sydney and Melbourne.
This way.
Sure.
Yeah,
Jeez, it's all
on you.
I guess most people are familiar with Airbnb and the sort of the opportunities and the gains that you can have by renting out rooms and apartments and houses and all that sort of stuff. And most people are also probably aware of the pain points that come along with that. Most obviously the kind of cleaning and the housekeeping and all that sort of stuff. And then probably more recently, as Airbnb's matured and into a full marketplace, there's obviously competitive forces and stuff that are going on. So the kind of battle for occupancy and revenue and generation and all that sort of stuff are also there. So they're all things that Hometime tackles, I guess.
That's awesome. And how did you guys get started?
Well, so back in the day, I was...
5 minutes ago.
That's right. Energy startup, and my co-founder Dave was an analyst in finances. He went and got married in Zimbabwe of all places, and so it kind of prompted a bit of a extended holiday over there. I was renting my place out on Airbnb and relying on friends to kind of take care of the logistics of the whole lot.
How'd that go?
Yeah, exactly. Reviews were not as good as Hometime's portfolio. Mama's hand-me-down sheets and all that sort of stuff coming in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not quite the polished product we might have today. Dave was also doing the same, and obviously we had a lot of conversations over there, a few beers and that sort of stuff. You're always looking for sort of business opportunities and that. And so this is probably 2015. Airbnb's going for 7 years at this stage, but it's pretty early penetration into Australia.
Isn't it surprising though when people think of these startups, well, they don't even startups, right? These tech giants that they think, overnight success. But wait, it's 7 years in 2015. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
10 years now.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So it's definitely it takes a little bit longer than everyone thinks, of course.
Yeah.
I guess we thought, okay, cool. This is obviously a trend that's really taking off, and along with that, there's going to be a need for kind of like supporting services.
Yeah.
And it didn't take too long to kind of, okay, cool, growth of Airbnb is kind of nuts. And then we looked abroad to the US and Europe, and we saw a couple of startups that were, probably just 6 months into their journey, but were doing cool things, had raised some capital, were tackling things with a kind of a technology angle. Yeah. And we thought, that's kind of, that's the validation that we need. So let's roll the dice. And Australia was already a good market in that Sydney and Melbourne were both kind of highly adopting Airbnb cities.
Yep.
Market conditions are favourable, validation overseas. All right, cool. There's the resignation letter, and let's get started, sort of thing. So
people struggle with that concept. I suppose going through that period of going, at what point do I hand in that resignation letter? Do you get started first? Do you just cut ties? How did you guys approach that?
Well, it was interesting because Dave and I approached it completely differently. So I came back from Africa, and Africa is an amazing place because there's not the kind of career infrastructure that there is in most of the Western world. And so everyone is kind of like a born hustler, like everyone's a business owner or they're trying something different. So I was just like, wow, if these people can do it over there, with the resources that they have, I can definitely do it here. So I got back, literally first week back from the trip after being 2.5 months away, there goes the letter, and I was just figuring it out. And that was awesome. And Dave, on the other hand, being financially minded, was like, I'll keep my job and I'll just, moonlight and get some progress before we hand in the resignation. And it was it's great to throw yourself wholly into it.
Yes.
And I really love doing that. Yeah. But I was also surprised at how productive Dave was holding down his full-time job. So there's a lot of ways to skin a cat.
Yes.
But I would suggest at least do the research before you quit your job, right? One good thing while you're at work, your lunch, or even spare a couple of hours after or before, and just research that industry to the nines. Yeah. Just go as far as you can. And the other thing that was really important is just to reach out to people, right? So something that was really awesome for us is we shot off the LinkedIn messages to some of these businesses in the US and Europe, and we got responses from these founders, hey, cool, this is, love to connect, and next thing you got a video call going on, you're getting a real life insight into what your life's going to be like, you know, 6 months down the track or whatever it might be. So that was fantastic, and we had some really good collaborative relationships with those guys over there. We still have those. And in our industry, it's been kind of dynamic. There's been a few pivots all around the place, and so being able to kind of get on the phone to people like, wow, saw you just raised, or saw you just change your business model. Why? You know, what were the factors? It's been awesome for us to kind of learn from. So that was excellent. So
it's great. And I mean, that collaboration, especially I think from technically competitive, future competitors, right? You haven't even started yet.
Yeah, that's
how do you explain that mindset? That's sort of
it's interesting. I think all the founders, or you know, globally and in new markets, and it doesn't really matter what you're doing. You're doing something new in somewhere where you are, and not many people understand what you're doing. I think it's still going.
It's surprising, sorry.
Not many people understand it. So if someone, you know, clued on and interested reaches out to them and is interested in hearing their story and is like generally like wanting to learn, they know, and you're good at this, like putting out your positive energy and your collaborative kind of face on only kind of brings it back in spades, right? So I think there's just this kind of understanding amongst like entrepreneurs that information sharing is crucial to anyone's success, and so, you know, even if these guys from Australia probably don't seem to be, you know, offering a lot to me right now, you know, I'll
there could be a future acquisition,
a
future merger,
whatever, all those kind of things. So they go, cool, I'll keep those guys, you know, feed them a few little bits of golden nuggets, and you know, probably nothing. But it was great because, you know, as you know, like, you're looking for that validation at the start. You know, how did you guys start? You're like, because we're all, you know, we had marketplace ambition. We started as a marketplace as well. So like, you know, the same things. Which side did you seed? Like, how did you get, you know, liquidity? Was it supply side first, demand? So you just have so many questions. And so they just go, cool, you know, in our place is what we did. Anyway, so they provide that validation, as I said, and we're like, cool, let's move forward. We spoke to them, and then the next kind of step was basically getting what sort of part of the ecosystem are we going to tackle? So a lot of Airbnb is just, you know, property management basically, and you can expand it to broader real estate property management. It's a massive space, and there's a lot of little verticals that you can take on. We decided at the start that, you know, we probably didn't want to necessarily own people's homes and be responsible for those. It seemed like a lot of responsibility at the time. And it was also the time when there's, you know, on-demand cleaning companies like Handy and stuff were doing well in the US.
Quite a few jumped up.
Exactly, popped up, Tidy Me and that sort of thing. And we saw those ones overseas, and we saw the ones that did well and the ones that did not so well. And it was that real kind of like, the ones that did well kind of like focused on those niche. And it was either like a real estate niche, or it was maybe, you know, a plumbing or a housekeeping, or whatever it might have been. And we thought we could be the niche for Airbnb services. And it makes sense, right? Like a domestic cleaning platform, people get their houses cleaned once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, etc., etc. An Airbnb property is getting cleaned every like 3 or 4 days, right? So you have a smaller sort of market size, but a higher volume and valuable market. So, like, cool, you know, the metrics here look great. Let's go. And so, Dave and I lacked the kind of, we needed like a technical co-founder, so we went and found a developer from advertising space. And, you know, we barely, before we even got him on board, we were doing it through Gumtree and all those kind of like hacks, you know, like we didn't know much about cleaning, so we were out there, you know, finding cleaning companies, working with them, you know, just that basic stuff, so at least you understand what's going on. And at the same time, we embedded ourselves in the Airbnb community. One thing Airbnb obviously did very well is they foster a great community in all of their markets. So there's a Sydney host group straight in there. You know, it didn't take us too long to become the leaders of the Sydney host community. And we held a lot of meetups and a lot of all sorts of stuff, and got awesome kind of feedback from hosts and all that sort of stuff. And so we started kind of very simply with just, you know, taking kind of quick website and taking kind of like email and phone requests for these jobs. And in fact, we'd host a meetup and people would be like, hey, I've got a booking in this time and that's such and that sort of stuff. And we just write it down. We're like, sure, we'll figure it out. And then just sourcing cleaners from Gumtree and that. And then it took us about probably 3 months to build an MVP and get that launched. And that was more just a customer facing booking site, right? And then from there, and this was in August 2015, and we got instant traction really quickly. There's a big sort of hole in the market, because you really needed cleaners with a high attention to detail.
Yes.
It's all about presentation when it comes to guests and hoteling and that sort of stuff. You know,
especially if that rating is reflective on the owner, not necessarily the cleaner as well.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you come home to your own cleaner and maybe they haven't moved the vase and wiped under it, and you don't really care. But when you're a guest coming into a home, like your cleanliness standards just jump up by 5 times or whatever. So, and then it's a kind of, as you said, the ratings and review system feeds all back into the performance of a listing.
Yep.
And so you got to nail it, right?
Yep.
So yeah, it took a little while to get that kind of, I guess it's like a service heavy business, right? It's relying on humans. It's very operational. There's a tech layer that can manage all that, but when it comes to the end of the day, it's someone that's doing that work.
Yeah.
So it took us a while to get our operating model right and finding the right housekeepers, for example, determining what services we'd exactly offer, like coupling that with a linen service, etc., etc. Anyway, fast forward, got all that under control. It was really we were fortunate. We made a few mistakes, and then we found the part of the kind of supply market that really worked well, and that was hotel housekeepers that are really highly trained.
Yes.
But they don't have a lot of flexibility in their workplace. A lot of them are students and mums and that sort of stuff, and they desire that. And it's not a great environment. They start at 5 a.m. and that sort of thing. So we started to attract a few of those people onto our platform, and it didn't take long. They just kept coming. This is a way better situation to work for than some of those big hotels. And at the same time, we're getting really highly trained people on our books, and they're doing a fantastic job, and our customers were stoked. And they're like, oh, awesome. So that side's sort of taken care of. And then at August, you're right, leading up to the kind of summer peak period where everyone's going away, and the demand, like naturally, we had a good tailwind. And so the adoption was really good just through the Airbnb network. The word got out, and then it started to go into like B2B kind of arrangements. So there's a lot of property managers around. And they're focusing on a lot of different things, and the last thing they can really get to is how to scale their cleaning business. And most of them had their own in-house cleaners, right? Wow. And this is also a place where Wiz was kind of playing a little bit. They were really attending to the real estate companies, and so then we were just tailoring to the short-term property management companies kind of thing. Yeah. And they loved us. They're like, oh, cool. Can you just take this big headache? Like I've got to scale from 3 people to 40 people every summer. It's a pain, it's hard to do. I don't have the tech to do it, etc.
Or the management,
or the
stress levels. Or
exactly. I'm getting abused by someone who's just arrived and they forgot to clean their house, so I don't have time to do that. Can you guys please do this? And at the time we were called Kayla, actually, as the housekeeping company. And so anyway, all these property management companies jumped on board, and we just drowned in volume. It was pretty scary. We're coming up to sort of Christmas and New Year's, and we'd been, like a record day was like, oh, in August we had a job every day of the week. Like, wow, how cool is that, And then we're doing like 50 jobs a night or in one day, barely like sort of 4 months later. And we're just like inundated. And it was super stressful, but we got through it, which was really cool. And obviously, following January, there's a little bit of alleviation, the kind of crazy peak period passes. But you do get awesome kind of, it's like a scattergun approach of just exposure. So even though, property management companies are sort of, they've got their own clients, but clients coming back to a home that Kayla at the time or Hometime had serviced. Yes. And they're like, wow, quality was really good. All that sort of stuff. So we picked up a huge amount of customers and got a lot of recognition out of that. And we also realized at the time that, the on-demand cleaning game is also it's pretty competitive. It's pretty low margins, all that sort of stuff, and it's also quite difficult to scale. Particularly, we were coupling it with linen delivery. So, if you're sending just people to a location, you can do that in multi-cities very quickly. Whereas when you've got a kind of supply chain associated with that, nightmare, right? So, we spent some time toying with how to handle the linen situation. And that's definitely probably the toughest part of the
I think we know somebody.
Housekeeping. Exactly. Jen's family. Well, one of the... so that was interesting. And we also noticed that these short-term property managers been around for a long time. They weren't necessarily embracing the new Airbnb platforms. they were still advertising on their personal websites and stuff like that, and we just see guys like, you know, the future of your business is it's a platform play, you know, and whether it's one platform or many, you know, getting your properties in an increasingly competitive landscape is you're gonna have to get onto that technology. And they were also charging quite exorbitant commission fees and stuff, you know, because they basically got an office full of people answering phone calls and writing emails and doing all that sort of stuff, and most of which can be fairly automated. Scheduling cleans, you know, checking in on cleaners, going and physically checking whether the house had been cleaned because they weren't sure if the cleaner had been there or not. You know, simple stuff. It's just, you know, and they've got a busy business, small business, hard to kind of get on top of all that sort of stuff. But anyway, we quickly realised there's a pretty big opportunity in sort of moving up the value chain and taking on the actual responsibility of the assets. And it was also interesting because we were doing effectively the hardest part of the property management, you know, equation, if you will. And it was also the reason property managers couldn't scale beyond their geographic areas because they couldn't manage to scale their cleaning. It was a simple kind of roadblock for them. So here we are, we've kind of gone, cool, we're in Sydney, we're in Melbourne, we've managed to scale a kind of cleaning platform tailored to this market in sort of the space of 6 months. That's going pretty well. Let's use that as a source of competitive advantage to open up a management business. And that's when we kind of launched Hometime. And that was really cool because, you know, we've done the hard yards, and then, you know, the rest of the kind of service delivery is around kind of relating to your guests and onboarding homes, and you know, making sure your guest has a good experience really comes down to communication. And that's a centralized function.
Sorry.
It's actually probably all right, Jen.
Oh, you feel
it probably looks. Yeah, my skin looks better with it.
The fake tan's gone. Cool.
So it made sense to move to that, and the way we did that is by, you know, through centralized services. So we could manage guests in Melbourne and Sydney without ever having to see them, and just using cool tools, nice technology to kind of automate things like the day before they arrive, they get a nice message, and the day after they arrive, a little check-in message, and simple stuff. But if you're a traditional property manager or even a host, you don't have time necessarily to message everyone and check in on them, and so instantly, we're providing. Exactly.
Perfect.
And so it was nice.
So because of that journey, right, you guys have evolved quite a bit. You've learned a lot along the way and pivoted. What's your advice to startups day one when they go, this is the idea and this is how I'm going to do it? It's, you know, how do you give them that advice and it's going to change and you need to change to survive? Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? Because we quickly kind of work out, oh man, we're growing like this, and our revenue's going like this, but our margins are staying pretty low, pretty skinny. And you're like, cool, well this is cool, but it's also competitive. We probably need to make a change. And I guess you hear all the podcasts and all the startup news, and it's basically just
like this one.
Just start. That's the most important thing. Don't even try and kind of optimize what you think your operations will be, or what your product will be, or how your service will look. It's just just start. Just get out there, hang with the first cleaning team. You know, Dave was here to tell the story that when we were learning to clean with these companies, one take came out and I was vacuuming this guy's ceiling. He's just what are you doing, mate? You know, so that was cool for us. It's just get out there, get some runs on the board, and get some feedback, right? So very quickly people were oh cool, you guys cleaned our home, but it took you 4 hours. It's Airbnb. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to dust the top of the fans, but it does mean you need to adjust the pillows so they look really nice when someone comes in. So you think your value proposition is this, and it quickly kind of ripples over to what it might be, or what's a kind of more of a sustainable path. And so I think when you're just about to kick off, do the research, and I would say connect to businesses overseas that are doing similar things, and really build your little network there quickly, and because that's probably the fastest way to learn. And then the next fastest way is just to start doing something, And I guess it's hard in some businesses where you're product orientated or whatever, but when we launched our kind of our MVP booking platform, it was super simple. You could book a housekeeper, you couldn't hardly do linen, it had 2 time slots in the day, there was no kind of cool scheduling or flexibility. But that was all it needed to be at the time.
Yeah.
So for our 5 customers or whatever.
Well, they get started, right? You don't
That's
need
right.
to build Facebook overnight. Facebook started something very simple way back in the day to what it is today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you'd also tailor that though, like after you've learnt it, with this kind, like once you've gone from just doing it, you know, bit by bit, to trying to grow and scale your business. It's just always nice to have that scalability, you know, thought process behind you.
Every decision you make.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so what's your team culture like? By the sounds of it, you'd be a great housekeeper.
We've got an awesome team culture, but it wasn't always like this.
Of course.
It's definitely it's been the hardest thing actually, which has been a surprise as well. I felt like, you know, coming into being an entrepreneur, I was like, cool, one thing I can do is I can relate to people very easily. I can sort of make friends quite easily. I think I should be able to, you know, cultivate a great team culture. Not necessarily the case. You know, hiring has been the hardest thing to learn by far, and getting that team together. So I guess a few mistakes we made early on was just we hired people too quickly, and then we probably released them too slowly. And you know, you hire someone based on a skill set that you might need. It might be an engineer, or it might be a marketing person. But if you don't give them, I guess, the support or the direction, and if you're not clear on what that person is really meant to achieve,
You're setting up for failure, right?
Exactly, and we did that a few times. And it wasn't probably...
All startups do.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not alone.
Funny, because when the culture's not working, it's just stressful. So even if you're growing and you're doing other things well, there's this underlying kind of niggle that, you know, the team's not as efficient as it could be, and the vibe's not as great as you want it to be. So anyway, like when we got to the point where like, cool, you know, and it was also this kind of hard thing where like founders, which are the key part of the team, were sort of, you know, that's where some of the tension was. And so that very quickly permeates everywhere, right? So once we kind of like, we were pretty adult about it, we had those discussions, which is good, and we'd already had like the proper kind of legal frameworks and stuff in place, and we kind of just handled it. Look, this is kind of like not working, and you know, we had someone kind of depart, and that kind of freed up the kind of decision making at a high level, and meant that, you know, and that same thing, it just kind of flowed down very quickly, and the team dynamic changed swiftly after that.
It's incredible.
So
what are the important legal things that startups need to be aware of?
The whole, you know, co-founder agreement, shareholders agreement, those kinds of things. Assignment of IP is pretty important if you're building anything technology related. So making sure they're all in place just means that if you come to that kind of separation point or little fork in the road where someone's going on a different path, that those conversations are kind of taken care of for you. You're like, look, we'd love to, you know, give you the whole company and let you go and start it in another place, but we've all agreed to this set of documents, and it's out of our control, and that makes it a much easier conversation to have, you know. And particularly if you're going to get investment and stuff like that, you don't have the freedom just to say, hey, well, we've taken money from these people and we're going to let you walk with some value. You know, like, it's got to be withheld in the company.
You need rules of play.
So, I mean, that's super important. And I also, you know, it's not something people always sort of sort out early, but there's also a lot of interesting literature online that you can read. And I think that's a great way to kind of tool up, you know, in those first... If you're thinking about starting it, you're still at work, read those sorts of things.
Well, I mean, it's definitely easier to have those conversations while everyone's friendly. It's when everything gets ugly, it's very difficult.
That's right, And just this anxiety, you know, like, you know, because you can't always have... those conversations are tough to have, but the lead up to those conversations are the worst. Exactly. And just, sleepless nights, all that sort of stuff. So then let's on the flip side. So once you do get it going, once you feel like you've got your team culture starting to work, and you make those few key hires that are just they're cultural fit, and then they've got the kind of ability to learn and to contribute, and they're flexible. I think that's a really important thing with a startup, is you have flexible teammates. It's such a pleasure. Like, I think we probably really got on top of this maybe a year ago, and then we recently got the Series A funding, if you will, so we've been able to hire, and the team grew quickly, well, you know, more quickly than it had been, but we learned from our mistakes, and we hired well, and now it's just like such a pleasure to come into the office, and people are very kind of autonomous, and they use their initiative, and, you know, the progress just goes, so, it's nice, it's nice, let's get the team dynamic working.
That's awesome. And two-sided marketplaces globally, it's always challenging, right?
Yeah.
How are you guys figured out how to control your supply and demand?
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess like we had these ambitions of like, we're going to be a massive marketplace with like tens of thousands of users, and all that sort of stuff. And we're operating in a niche like Airbnb, although it's a massive global marketplace with hundreds of thousands of millions of users. We are still confined at this stage to Australia and to that kind of market. And the marketplace has interesting kind of, I guess, situational factors that allow it to kind of function quite effectively without necessarily the crazy volumes we were initially expecting or forecasting. And in terms of like seeding which side, we started with on-demand housekeeping, which is more of a clear marketplace to the property management business. And in that respect, we seeded supply first because we basically found that these, it was through that operating model I was talking about earlier. We came across a cohort of the society or whatever that would be our kind of workforce that basically were looking for flexibility and stuff and didn't necessarily need full-time work from us straight away. So it was really nice because like, cool, these guys would take jobs and they'd be happy with a few a week at the start. And then once we gave them more volume, they quit their other jobs and came onto us kind of more full-time. Which is great. So having that kind of, if you kind of come across that one little hack that just allows one side to be a little bit easier to control, or
makes it a lot easier.
Exactly, to make sure that, because it comes down to engagement on both sides, doesn't it? So if you can kind of fake the engagement or hack the engagement on one side, it makes it a lot easier.
That sounds a lot better than fake.
When you're pitching, use hack.
Yes, I didn't steal or do anything illegal.
That's right. And then you can focus. Then you go, cool. How are we going to hack the other side? For us, it was the Airbnb meetups and those sorts of things, which it was ridiculous how successful that was and how non-scalable it is, but just how quickly it worked. Like to the point where we were doing some cool stuff with the Sydney host network. Getting sort of interior designers in, getting like tax accountants in to explain that sort of stuff to them. So just trying to provide a bit of value. And then, Hometime gets a little plug at the end,
Everybody's happy.
Of course. But that kind of format for a meetup spread down to Melbourne. And so Melbourne started, using the same sort of, same format. They were asking us, hey, can we use your guest speakers, that sort of stuff. And then that kind of collaboration expanded. And, before you know it, people are like, hey, when are you guys coming to Melbourne? And you're like, wow, that's... we're tiny. We're only like 4 people in the office here. Like, why is there demand coming from Melbourne all of a sudden?
It's fantastic.
So, it was cool.
Really exciting. And what are some of the tools that you guys use to manage the business?
I guess I think one thing that was a really awesome integration early on was Xero, like the financial accounting stuff. So
you are not sponsored by Xero.
We're not. Sorry, or anything, whatever. I won't list anyone. When we first built the platform, one of the first integrations we did was into the accounting software, right? And to this day, the accounting software provides you the most granular insight into what the business is doing. For me to quickly look at like how our operations teams are doing and whether they're kind of acting efficiently, because we do a lot of things like property maintenance and photography and onboarding and stuff like that. And if I can see that there's less kind of billable sort of costs coming through the business, it's like, hey guys, what's going on? And so that's great. I would, instead of at the end of the month invoicing people and not quite having the kind of like idea of where your company stands and having to do the reconciliation, having that as a live kind of, just dive into it and check it out. That's
makes
awesome.
Perfect sense, right? And what else have you used? Have you used any of the analytics things?
So Google, like analytics was interesting. Like, so I didn't have a marketing background, engineering background, like, so enjoyed the numbers and stuff like that, but not a marketing background. And so, it's really hard to kind of improve your product or even just your website, because forget the product, you just want to convert customers, the product will come and eventually that'll take a life of its own, but you just want to convert those customers. And so you look at your Google Analytics and get some help setting that up, right? I would say an awesome one that we didn't come across until quite recently was, further down the path was something called Google Tag Manager. And, you install that, it takes like half a day to get it working. and then all of a sudden the insights you can get from Facebook and from Google go from being a hunch to kind of something that's quite accurate.
Yes.
So this kind of leads nicely into a little. I'll do a quick Tammy plug.
Yes,
I don't have to,
no.
but that's. Early on, you use Google Analytics and that sort of stuff. And what's been really awesome since we got investment is like I was explaining to you the other day, like our partnership with a marketing capability, and they've just taken the drill down of your customer acquisition process to such a granular level. I never thought it was even required, right?
Yeah.
So when our guys are telling us, this is one of our investment partners, they're telling us like, cool, I can see, Joan Smith signed up last week and I can see she came from this campaign.
Yeah.
But you guys, like, how do you know that was the first campaign she clicked on? Like, you're only saving the most recent data.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that was, she might have clicked 4 times before coming to your website and signing up. And we're like, okay, cool. So then we iterated like, cool, look, now we've saved like Joan Smith into our database. Gosh, this is all the touch points she had, and this is the conversion points, and this was the map she went down, and then the guys are like, okay, that's great, but you're still not telling me what she was searching for before she came to some Hometime. And I'm like, guys, like, really? We've kind of done this on a more of a custom build sort of scale, and we now have such a good deep dive into what they do, and then also what they do post sign up and become a customer in terms of their spending habits and stuff, and we've got quite a long tail acquisition process. So for someone to sign up and hand their keys over to a property manager, it's a bit of research. It's finding out who are the competitors in the market, what the comparison rates are, what services they offer. It's probably a phone call and a browse at our website, and then it's sometimes a coffee before they'll even, which is not scalable. Don't try to avoid that. But
someone's going to get a hold of your calendar.
But to optimize your marketing, tactics or your campaigns, you don't really know which one was working, because Joan mucked around for 4 weeks before she became a customer. And so as soon as she became a customer, and then understanding what her spending was after that, and feeding that right back into the start of the top of your funnel, is super important. So now we do things like we as a customer comes and sign up, you have the sort of a lead that's generated from the website. It might be an email, it might be a phone number. They're quickly attributed to other sort of warm, hot, or cold through their interactions with us and our sales team. And then as soon as they're marked as warm, hot, or cold, that feeds directly back into the campaign metrics. So campaign A yielded a high number of warm or hot leads despite this kind of spend and that sort of stuff. Even though it might have had a fewer number of total leads, it's a high quality campaign. So once you get there, then you're starting to build a strong kind of competitive advantage against your competitors, because you understand down to the cent how much you can spend to acquire your customer. And if you know that kind of lifetime value and there's a kind of positive delta there, you can confidently allocate resources for that. Whereas before we had that kind of level of detail, I might be waffling on a little bit here, but you're thinking we need to try something new all the time. Should we try billboards? Should we try buses? Should we try radio? Like all those things, just because you're like, we want that kind of instantaneous boost. But then you kind of go, okay, cool. No, like this Facebook medium or Google medium or this display network or whatever it might be. That's the little anomaly that seems to be performing better. And rather than $1,000 on a billboard, you go, we'll put $1,000 on that little campaign that seems to be doing something quite well. And before you know it, you're not even making a conscious decision, but before you know it, 2 months down the track, you've really honed in that funnel, and then a year down the track, you've got these really kind of powerful, acquisition metrics that you can move to other markets and stuff like that. So that's the kind of, you start with Google Analytics and Tag Manager, and then eventually you really do need to go pretty crazy onto it.
Especially when you're looking at unit economics.
That's right.
So how did you, involve that into the daily conversation with your team, and obviously all your metrics? There's a transformation there because people aren't used to doing that.
No, that's right. That's right. And even when because there's the obvious ones like your CACs and LTVs and stuff like that. But I guess what's even interesting is, and what we've learned from this kind of this marketing kind of influence is to monitor those on a bi-weekly basis kind of thing. So not even end of the month and go, we're spending X to get our customers. It's kind of like...
You spent it already.
we spent it already, exactly, So how come we spent, double what we did the previous month, but our customers are only up 20% kind of thing? They're not the conversations you want to have. So I would say like it can be your acquisition cost, or it can be your cost per lead, or it can be your cost per hot lead,
Yeah.
or it can be, you know, your cost per email, whatever it might be. Look at those at least weekly, and compare them to the previous week, and because that's the only way you do it like enough so you can know what changed. Because if you evaluate it at the end of the month, you've changed 10 things, you know, and
you don't know.
You don't know.
You've got to automate it so you can pull a lever. So
well, that's exactly like that. It's funny because we've put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into building that kind of system, and it's been sort of, like I said, 4 months into 5 months in the process, and if we had a bit of an off-the-shelf product that, you know, it's good. One thing is going through the process, you learn so much, and then it makes using a product a lot easier. But I mean, it would be nice, I must say, if you could have just plugged it in.
Coming real soon.
Coming soon. Keep posted.
That's awesome. And so then, I guess, then what's next? Are you guys planning on getting outside of Australia? Or?
Yeah, that's right. So I guess one thing that's interesting for us is obviously there's more markets in Australia, so we'll go to the Gold Coast and Brisbane fairly soon, and then we want to kind of start we'll also go to New Zealand sort of as part of that kind of rollout, and then we'll just kind of see how we go, because that's kind of when you expand different time zones and all that sort of stuff, your tech just gets a bit of a bit of a stretch, and you just got to see how that goes. And then there's the Asian opportunity is on our doorstep, so we're very interested in that. But also, I think what we've looked, and this comes back to looking overseas and seeing what successful companies have done abroad. Some of the most successful companies in the US, instead of conquering these kind of key markets, which you might think are like New York and LA and London and all those kind of big cities, it's actually getting an operating model that allows you to go into the smaller markets, holiday rental markets. Like, for example, in Australia, it might be like a Byron Bay or something like that, because
has high turnover, small density.
That's right. Space, and although the sheer volume or the number of homes of listings you would get in the entirety of Byron Bay is probably comparable to Darlinghurst in Sydney, the fact that you can then go and apply it to 10 other Byron Bays is a really kind of an interesting prospect. Exactly.
Definitely.
So that's and that requires, again, at the moment we have this kind of marketplace set up with our operations, so housekeeping and then all sorts of stuff. Marketplace in Byron Bay, it's a different kind of thing. You've got a couple of small providers, you don't have the liquidity to sort of make that work. So that's going to require some more operating tweaks, and a few technology tweaks, and we'll see how we go. So, but I think it's a big opportunity, and like I said before, looking abroad, some of the most successful companies overseas have cracked that. So that's what we'll look for.
Really exciting.
Yeah.
So, questions I always ask everyone is, what do you read or listen to or look to get ideas, advice, any crazy podcasts?
So, I mean, I know a lot of people are talking Masters of Scale I've been enjoying lately, like the Reid Hoffman one. The 20, is it the half-hour startups or 20-minute startups? I can check for you, and we'll comment on who the...
Oh, sorry.
We're almost out of memory.
Yeah.
But so I'm only pretty new to the podcast scene, but I'm loving it. So I used to listen to the Tim Ferriss and a few of those kind of ones. But when you kind of you dive down a bit deeper, and there's a whole layer. And I only just recently, Dave showed me yesterday that Spotify's actually got a whole podcast section.
Really? Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that.
And it's a bit easier.
Thanks, Dave.
It's a bit easier to browse by interest in Spotify. They've done a good job of kind of curating what the interest breakdowns are. So you can just Anyway, there's a little tip for the day. Spotify podcast, thanks to Dave Thompson. But that's the main thing. And then there's a lot of good little email newsletters you can sign up for. Yeah. And I think if you can come into the morning, get to work in the morning, whatever your morning ritual is, but you just get a little top up of reading and information, or you do that in the evenings. That's it's a pleasure, because it's something that you can just that's something that applies to me in real life. So
it's awesome. I think lucky last one. If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
A superpower?
Yeah.
Funnily enough, it'd be networking like a ninja.
Yeah.
I think honestly there's so much to gain from just having everyone as your best friend and being able to call upon them and it doesn't matter whether you're an entrepreneur or simply, you know, in any form of business or any form of your career.
Yeah.
Just networking like a ninja is a way to really excel.
Awesome. And if people want to check out your site or get involved with Hometime, where should they go? What should they follow?
Hometime.io. That's, you know, everything's there. I guess if you're Jen asked me like what the one like kind of tip was. Some people think it's too hard.
Yeah.
And you might have an investment property and all that sort of stuff. Oh, I've heard about this Airbnb opportunity. It's too hard. That's what Hometime exists for.
Yep.
Flick us like the worst property with no furniture, all that sort of stuff. We'll turn it around for you very quickly and make it a very painless exercise. So yeah, jump on board, check us out.
And you can hold them to it.
Well, hey, buy yourself a holiday. Like, hey, I just went to Sri Lanka for 2 weeks. I didn't spend any money because the place was on Airbnb.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it was amazing.
Awesome.
It was amazing. And this is in the dead of winter in Bondi. I was pretty amazed. I guess one thing that Airbnb's got all this crazy criteria now on how to gamify it. And that's something that we've kind of made our expertise, right?
Yeah.
So if even in the dead of winter in a Bondi property, you can still, you know, pull sort of double the rent out of it, you should do that. So anyway. Cool, guys. Thanks for listening. I hope it wasn't too boring.
Thanks very much, guys. See you next time and enjoy your week.